This video will tell you everything about every special grade sorcerer's curse techniques. We're going to walk through all their showings one by one to fully understand what's happening, how they work, with some info from the author too. We're going to start with Gojo and work our way to Sukuna and then hit some abilities that most, if not all of them have. Gojo is the only character seen with the 6 eyes, but others have had it in the past. In fact, Satoru is the first person with 6 eyes and Limitless in the Gojo clan in 400 years. The 6 eyes let Gojo see through his target's curse technique and detect curse energy. This lets him manipulate curse energy with high accuracy and is needed to use Limitless to its fullest. Gojo's 6 eyes Limitless combo was so strong that Toji didn't think he could take Riko. Toji could wipe out the whole Zenin clan by himself, even with multiple grade 1 sorcerers in their army, yet he had to take precautions for Gojo alone. We learned that Gojo sensed Toji's presence from behind when they were younger. This is impressive because Toji has no curse energy, and no one ever did this before or after Gojo. In Volume 0, Gojo blasts a curse with red. It's here we learn that Gojo controls space on an atomic level, and it's all possible because of the 6 eyes. In the past, Kinjaku lost twice to 2 users of the 6 eyes. The second time he killed one of them when they were a baby, yet the 6 eyes came back and stopped his plans anyway. How this happened, I have no idea. Maybe they got passed on to someone else. We have to wait for Gege to say something, if he will at all. We also find out 2 6 eyes users can exist at the same time. This is why Kinjaku used Prison Realm to seal Gojo, and it also means Yuta could never copy 6 eyes while Gojo was alive. In chapter 140, we find out the 6 eyes bring Gojo's energy use close to 0. This plays a big role in how he can use his technique for so long, and him spamming domain expansion in Shinjuku, which costs others a lot of energy. Gojo's technique, Limitless, is described by the author in the fanbook. Under the Limitless technique, anything that tries to approach the user will continue converging eternally. The Gojo clan's inherited technique is a barrier that manifests infinity and prevents any contact. Basically, if you try to touch Gojo, you'll slow down forever and never reach him. In chapter 170, Gojo uses his technique for 3 days. We find out later that this can fry his brain since Gojo doesn't know how to heal himself. When he gets Riko to Jujutsu High, he's stabbed from behind by Toji. When he's younger, Gojo's infinity is turned on and off at will, so the moment he turned it off, he was vulnerable to attack. When Toji gets around this, he stabs Gojo in the throat with the inverted spear of heaven, and several more times on the body. The special grade curse tool forces the stoppage of a curse technique on contact, and it's one of the most effective ways to get past infinity. Once he awakens, Gojo learns how to use infinity automatically all day and night. He can block out threats based on mass, speed, shape, and curse energy, and won't get caught off guard like with Toji again. He can do this thanks to reverse curse technique healing his brain at all times. The one thing he never confirmed is if he can block poisons. After he awakens, Suguru thinks Gojo can take out all of humanity on his own. This is because of his 24/7 infinity, red, blue, and purple, and healing, that make him unstoppable to most in the series. In chapter 2, Gojo touches Yuji's forehead and knocks him out cold. How he did this isn't clear, but it's pretty cool. In the exchange event, Gojo uses 6 eyes to see Yuji got stronger from so high up you can't even see people below him. This shows how far Gojo's 6 eyes let him see and detect curse energy. With so much precision, he can see Yuji's growth, his ally Todo, and who they're fighting against, all while assessing how they'll do. In Shibuya, Jogo and Hanami use domain amplification that weakens curse techniques to try and stop Gojo's Limitless. However, Gojo boosts his technique so much that he not only counters something used to counter him, but he overpowers and crushes Hanami into paste, a curse that could fight Yuji and Todo at the same time, who are equal to special grade curses themselves. One of Gojo's first offensive moves is blue. He's always been able to use blue since it uses curse energy, and it's not a reverse technique. In chapter 65, Gojo uses max output blue to rescue Mei and Utahime. He dumps as much curse energy as possible to make blue pull in everything around it. Gojo uses blue against a bounty hunter to force his clones to crash into one another. He does this by manipulating space to make a magnetic effect around his opponents. Using blue is hard for Gojo early on, especially his max output. Manipulating the curse energy is difficult when he's younger and tires him out, on top of needing to use Azure Glow away from himself. Gojo uses blue to attack Toji, but he dodges so fast Gojo didn't see him. Toji is the only person to ever dodge blue in the series, since early on he outclasses Gojo. Gojo then uses max output blue to take down everything around him Toji can use for an ambush. This is the first time we see Gojo can move Azure Glow at will and direct it to pull in whatever he wants to. When he awakens, Gojo learns to use red and blue several times at once. He can also teleport with blue by compressing space between where he is and where he wants to go, and minimize hand signs. These things made him the strongest over Suguru and every other sorcerer. In Volume 0, Gojo uses blue to teleport Panda and Uzumaki to Jujutsu High to deal with Suguru. This is him showing that 10 years later, he mastered long-range teleportation that he worked on in Hidden Inventory. In Chapter 2 of the manga, Gojo claps his hands to teleport around Sukuna. This is him compressing the space between him and where he lands, and he can do it several times in a row. When he meets Jogo, a special grade disaster curse, none of Jogo's attacks can reach him. He explains he's not stopping Jogo, but slowing him down the closer he gets, which he compared to Achilles and the tortoise earlier. That makes infinite distance between himself and his opponent. He then punches Jogo several times in a row, and Jogo knows this isn't just a curse energy attack, but he doesn't understand what it is. We later learn that Gojo puts blue into his punches. This is what causes Jogo so much pain, and even made Yuta and Hikari throw up, despite them being top tiers themselves. Gojo teleports to grab Yuji, and bring him to Jogo to show him domain expansions. This was so fast, Jogo had no idea where Gojo went, until he reappeared right in front of him, despite the fact that Jogo is compared to Naruto, the second fastest alive at the time. In Chapter 52, Gojo uses blue on Juzo Kamaya, and weakens it not to kill him. Even though he's holding back, blue is strong enough to twist someone's limbs beyond recognition, and he makes it look easy, even when Juzo could fight Gakuganji, who killed a grade 1 sorcerer. After Yuji and the others free Gojo, an earthquake shakes the ground around them. We find out Gojo teleported from 8,000 meters underwater, caused an earthquake, and killed curses all to get straight to Kinjaku, under 11,750 pounds of force. After Gojo punches Urume with blue, blood starts flying out of her mouth. This is the same Urume who could kill Yuji and freeze a stronger Maki, yet one punch from Gojo's blue did so much we didn't see her until a day later. After a domain expansion against Sukuna, Gojo hits technique burnout and can't teleport out of Sukuna's domain, even though he could if he wasn't in that situation. Technique burnout is when a cursed technique becomes hard to use after a domain expansion, which is why Mahito was in pain after he used one on Todo. Gojo uses max output blue on Sukuna to trap him in the gravity, but Sukuna is strong enough to break out with no visible damage, since he and Gojo are closer to the same level. By the time he's older, Gojo can fire 8 blues off at the same time, the same move that tired him out before his awakening, showing how much stronger he got. His blue punches are enough to make Mahoraga throw up. Keep in mind this is Sukuna's Mahoraga, not Megami's, so it has more energy poured into it. Yet one punch with blue still rocked Mahoraga. Gojo brings out max output blue against Agito after punching it into the ground and implodes the Shikigami. This is the first time this has happened. Since Gojo only used this on buildings and trapping Sukuna, this adds a new level to his power. Knowing Mahoraga adapted to blue, he condenses the space between himself and the Shikigami to teleport in front of it. This is a big play, since Mahoraga's adaptation means it got no benefit from this process. Blue doesn't decide who it does and doesn't teleport, so if Mahoraga wasn't adapted, he would have moved too. Red is the power to repel, the opposite of blue, and Gojo couldn't use it before awakening. This is because reverse curse technique needs an understanding of positive energy that Gojo didn't have until later. When he awakens, Gojo uses red for the first time against Toji. This move is so strong it blasts Toji into a building and makes him check for broken bones, the same Toji who could kill Curse Naoya in Maki's words. When he goes over Gojo's abilities, Toji thinks he's fast enough to dodge blue, but needs better timing for red. This means red is faster than blue, and Gojo's awakening had no influence on blue's speed, but they can both get stopped by the inverted spear of heaven. He uses red on Jogo in chapter 14 and blasts him through a forest. This same move had Toji check for broken bones, but Jogo keeps fighting with no break in between, even though it's from a much stronger Gojo. Gojo refreshes his technique and blasts Sukuna with red, and rips off half Sukuna's face. This was the strongest red he'd used till that point, since Sukuna was already above Jogo at 15 fingers, and he's had a decade to train since Toji, and neither of them took that much damage. We later on see Gojo can hit his opponent with red and even delay the explosion against Sukuna. This is a huge jump in skill from when he used it on Jogo and Toji in the past. Gojo uses chance against Sukuna and Mahoraga to restore his output for red, and this is so strong Sukuna pulls himself and Mahoraga in the shadow to not take the damage damage head-on. Against Toji, Gojo uses Hollow Purple for the first time. Limitless comes with a manual on how to use it, so other people know how his technique works, yet only a few in the Gojo clan know about Purple at the time. The move combines red and blue and creates an imaginary mass that rushes forth. Unlike red and blue, this move is fast enough to hit Toji before he can dodge or use the inverted Spear of Heaven, and kill someone who takes down special grade sorcerers in one move. Gojo uses Hollow Purple to rip through Hanami from far away, and catches the curse even when it tries to escape. This is strong enough to leave Hanami near death, even though it has the highest durability out of all the disaster curses, who are all special grade. Hanami also survived 5 black flashes from Yuji, who could match a special grade curse at the time. Thanks to Ajichi, Utahime, and Gakuganji, Gojo boosts his Hollow Purple to 200%. This is so strong it blasts one of the hands off 20-finger Sukuna, the same Sukuna who's as strong as 20 special grade curses in one body. Gojo's Unlimited Void is his domain expansion, which brings him inside the Limitless and forces them to endlessly perform life activities like perception and communication. The target is inundated with an infinite amount of information and gently guided towards death. Basically, he overloads your brain until you die. Gojo's first domain is against Jogo in chapter 15, where Jogo says he can see everything, feel everything, and that the information has no end. The domain doesn't show complete information, instead it breaks it into sets. So you wouldn't see apple infinite times, you'd see infinite A's, infinite P's, L's, and E's for everything in the universe until you die. Gojo tells Jogo he'll stop there, since there are some things he wants to ask him, and puts his hand on Jogo's head. We learn from Kinjaku later, contact with Gojo stops the effect. So this is Gojo pausing the flow of infinite information. In Shibuya, Kinjaku makes sure to surround Gojo with people so he doesn't use his techniques. Red and purple would kill innocent people around him. Blue would dump cursed energy on them and kill them. And his domain expansion's barrier would crush them against the wall. This is why Gojo's at his best when he's alone, along with Unlimited Hollow. Gojo uses Unlimited Void for 0.2 seconds to stun the disaster curses and kill 1,000 transfigured humans. In this 0.2 seconds, Gojo put half a year of info into the people around him and sent them into a coma they got out of later. When he fights Sukuna, Gojo thinks his domain is stronger than Malevolent Shrine, even while he's being ripped apart. But the fact that he's surviving is why he's saying this, since healing does nothing against Unlimited Void. In the second clash with Sukuna, Gojo flips the internal conditions to make his barrier stronger on the outside. This gets mentioned in Yuji and Nanami vs Mahito, where the inside of a barrier is typically stronger than the outside to make sure the target doesn't escape. So Gojo flipped that so his domain wouldn't break on the outside. In the third clash, Gojo expands his domain so far Kashimo thinks he's trying to outdo Sukuna's range. This range boost comes at a cost since it drops the quality of Unlimited Void, so the domain would be weaker overall. All of a sudden, Gojo's domain shrinks smaller than a basketball. This condensed domain makes Unlimited Void stronger and even holds out against Malevolent Shrine briefly. Kusakabe tells the students this is impossible, since a barrier too small to hold the user and the opponent would collapse. But Gojo learned how to put himself in a space smaller than his body from being inside of Prison Realm. So in this 19 days, he learned how to do a domain feat that no one else knows how to do. We learn it takes Sukuna 3 minutes to break Unlimited Void from the outside, but if Gojo damages him enough, he breaks Malevolent Shrine. This basically means if Gojo hits Sukuna with Unlimited Void in 3 minutes, he wins. Thanks to Sukuna healing after Gojo lands Unlimited Void. Even though he gets interrupted by Mahoraga, we find out in the 10 seconds it hit, it fried his brain enough to take Sukuna's domain off the table. Gojo can also use the Black Flash. This hits at an exponent of 2.5 and brings him to 120% potential. When he mixes max output blue with a powered up red, he makes Unlimited Hollow and blows up Mahoraga. This is Hollow Purple fired in every direction, which does less damage to Gojo because it's his energy, but it does backfire against Sukuna, because if he put all the energy in one place, Sukuna would have died. Next up is Curse Manipulation, that belongs to Suguru Geto and Kinjaku, who took over his body. The technique lets users absorb curses and control their powers at will. Suguru uses this to summon curses and have them fight with him. Summoning curses doesn't cost curse energy, since the energy of the curses can be used to summon them. There's no limit to the number of cursed spirits that can be absorbed, which is how Geto got over 4,000. The strength of the technique lies in the quantity of moves that can be used, since each curse comes with its own strengths and technique. When he fought a bounty hunter, the old man recognized curse manipulation. This means curse manipulation has a history that goes past Suguru, but how old the technique is unknown. When he fights the hunter, Suguru uses a worm-like curse to attack the man in the hallway. This is great for small spaces, since the curse shuts off all escape routes unless his target kills it or finds a way around it. Suguru uses this same curse later to capture Toji Fushiguro, but it's killed with the Soul Split Katana. This weapon lets Toji cut the souls of his opponents and go past their defenses, so the curse wouldn't have survived. When Toji defeats Gojo, Suguru brings out two curses, Rainbow Dragon and Kuchisake Onna. Even though the Rainbow Dragon has the highest durability out of his curses, it's killed with the Soul Cut Katana that ignores defenses and attacks the soul, so the curse dies. Kuchisake Onna brings Toji into a simple domain with a pact that can't be broken until its question is answered. If you answer no, she kills you with scissors. If you answer yes, then no, she cuts you in half. If you answer yes 2 times, she slits your mouth to look like hers. Knowing this, Toji doesn't give a yes or no answer and survives. Kuchisake starts to cut Toji and surrounds him with scissors, but Toji uses the inverted spear of heaven to get past the curse. The inverted spear shuts off curse techniques, so it lets him escape the domain and exorcise Onna. In the fight, we learn that Suguru can absorb any curse 2 levels below him with no conditions. By the end of Hidden Inventory, Suguru is a special grade, so he can absorb curses grade 2 and below at will. Anything stronger, he has to fight first and weaken to absorb. Suguru goes after Toji's curse, but it doesn't work. We learn in Volume 0 that if the curse has an owner like Toji's or Yuta and Rika, he has to kill the owner first, then he can absorb the curse later. When Suguru loses to Toji keeps him alive because he doesn't know what'll happen with Suguru's curses if he dies. This turned out to be nothing, since Suguru was killed in Volume 0 and no curses came out of his body. When Suguru eats curses, it tastes like rags that wiped up vomit. Doing this thousands of times is part of what drove him to be a villain, along with the death of Riko and Haibara. Suguru can also use curse manipulation to talk to other sorcerers. Those who can't see curses apparently can't hear them, so his message was only shown to Nanako and Mimiko. Suguru used his curse to kill 112 villagers and went rogue. How easy this was plays into his role as a special grade, and shows a glimpse of how summoning curses can wipe out a country. When he takes over a cult, Suguru crushes a man with a curse from above. This is similar to the way Megami crushes Reggie with an elephant inside Chimera Shadow Garden, since they can both flatten their opponents with summons. In Volume 0, Suguru summons a semi-grade 1 curse to get Yuta to bring out Rika. This curse is as strong as a grade 2 sorcerer like Inumaki, and it's one of many that Suguru has. After Yuta's mission, Suguru absorbs a curse that was attached to a young woman. The fact that he didn't have to fight the curse to exorcise it means the curse was either grade 2 or weaker, since Suguru can absorb curses 2 grades or lower than himself. He can also summon weak curses to deal with humans at will, since the curses killed the man they were after, and grade 4 curses are compared to a wooden baseball bat, while grade 3 is a pistol and grade 2 is a shotgun. These curses were above grade 4 at minimum. When he comes back to Tokyo, Suguru flies in on one of his curses, a giant pelican. Suguru can fly on top of this across Japan, but he can also transport his allies in its mouth. So it's pretty cool. When he starts the night parade, Suguru says he'll summon 1,000 curses in Tokyo and Kyoto. This comes at no cost to him since he summons the curses with their own energy, so he's not fatigued even after he summons an army. This also plays into when he summons a group of curses to surround Gojo's students. It doesn't cost him energy, so it's not a big deal. The one-eyed curse is also the same one he used against Toji in season 2 of the anime. Since his fight with Toji, Suguru gained thousands of curses. Some of these he went out and looked for, some he got from his temple, and some he already had. Yaga makes a guess that most of these are grade 2 or less. Since there are only 16 special grade curses in the show at this time, this is probably spot on. With his curses and his family, Suguru has 30% or less odds to defeat every sorcerer in Japan. This includes the Hei, who's semi-grade 1 and above, the Kakuru unit, the Kamo clan, the Tokyo and Kyoto students, alumni like the Nami, several grade 1 sorcerers and below, and even Satoru Gojo. But how Suguru planned on killing Gojo is unknown. This chance goes up to 99% if he kills Yuta and absorbs Rika. Rika is a spirit with boundless curse energy, so this gave him the confidence that he could take out Gojo and every other sorcerer in Japan. Mind you, Suguru saw Gojo after his awakening, so him saying this is a big deal. When Suguru fights Inumaki in panda, he gets forced into a crater by cursed speech and comes back thanks to a curse. This curse lets Suguru pull himself out of deep areas and maybe even levitate. When Suguru starts his fight against Yuta, he summons a fleet of weak curses. This shows that when he's confident he can win, he starts with numbers over quality, the opposite of what he did with Toji. When the two fight with weapons, Suguru uses curses to catch Yuta off guard and line him up for another attack. This curse is weak since Yuta killed it with one hit, but it does serve as a way to boost Suguru's fighting. As the fight draws to a close, Suguru summons special grade imaginary vengeful spirit Tamamo no Mei. This is the highest rank in the series, and there are only 16 of them. Thanks to how Suguru's technique works, he had to fight this curse to tame it. He combines over 4,000 curses into one to use his maximum technique, Uzumaki. Maximum techniques are the strongest moves a sorcerer has, aside from domain expansion. Suguru merging all these curses into one attack was so strong that Yuta needed a binding vow to pass the limit of curse energy to win. We later learn in Shibuya that Suguru would have won against Yuta had he not split his forces in Kyoto and Tokyo. This could mean his Uzumaki would be even stronger, or it could mean he would have used better tactics. When Suguru dies and Kinjaku takes over, he says the technique is strong because of how many moves it gives him. He has multiple curses semi-grade 1 and higher, so he can summon curses equal to grade 2 sorcerers and above at will. He can release more techniques when his opponents figure them out, or he can pile on the attacks. Piling on curses is enough to bring down Yuji, who's strong enough to fight Choso and Mahito. Both are special grade curses. He then absorbs Mahito after he was weakened from fighting Yuji. Mahito as a special grade curse has the same rank as Kinjaku, so he wouldn't absorb him on the spot. Therefore, he used Yuji to make him weak enough for curse manipulation. Kinjaku saw Uzumaki as a waste since it got rid of all his curses, but he learned he can extract the techniques of curses semi-grade 1 or higher. This is how he extracts Mahito's idol transfiguration later on. Kinjaku uses Uzumaki on Miwa, but he's stopped by Kusakabe's simple domain. This is Kusakabe weakening Kinjaku's technique the same way he does with Sukuna later on. Kinjaku uses idol transfiguration across Japan to awaken 1,000 sorcerers. This is him getting rid of Mahito, since the curses from Volume 0 are gone after Uzumaki, and idol transfiguration was a one-time use. Kinjaku has always been after Tengen, but thanks to curse manipulation, he can finally capture him. Tengen evolved into more of a curse than a human, and since Kinjaku as a special grade can absorb her instantly, this means Tengen is grade 2 or below. In chapter 201, Kinjaku summons Ganesha against United States soldiers. This curse manipulates concepts and uses gravity against them. In chapter 203, Choso uses Supernova against Kinjaku, and he blocks with one of his curses. Choso is a special grade death painting, the highest curse rank, and his Supernova hurt Yuji, who's as strong as a special grade curse himself. Yet Kinjaku's curse kept him unharmed. He also grabs Choso's leg from the ground with curses to get the upper hand. This is the same way that Suguru fought against Yuta in Volume 0, and shows how curse manipulation can help catch opponents off guard. He attacks Choso with a ton of curses and floors him, saying even dust can pile up into a mountain. Even if Kinjaku uses lots of low-grade curses, he can boost them with curse energy to take down grade 1 sorcerers, who equal special grade curses themselves. When Choso fakes Aso's Wing King, Kinjaku brings out a curse to fly around him and avoid it. This is like Suguru's big pelican curse, but more practical since it's smaller and not a huge target. He also uses curses to blind his opponents and get an advantage, the same way Daten blinded Naruto with Shikigami in Shibuya. Choso pours everything into one of his punches and slams his fist into Kinjaku. But even with one curse, Kinjaku can pump it full of so much energy that it blocks an attack from a grade 1 sorcerer. The same Choso who could fight Yuji hand to hand, the Yuji that pushed Hanami with Todo. Kinjaku can also use many Uzumakis to attack his opponent. He even used a layered strategy against Yuki by using gravity and curses so that she wouldn't see it coming. Even when the Uzumaki is smaller, it's still strong enough to blast a hole in one of the top tiers in the series. After Yuki dies, Kinjaku absorbs Tengen. This means when he merges Tengen with Japan, he can make a curse out of 100 million people's curse energy. Kinjaku uses curses to counter Hazanoki's reverse curse technique by cutting off the flow below his neck. This stops any healing from getting to his body so he can be killed at any time. Kinjaku uses curses against Takaba and does no damage. This is because of Takaba's technique, Comedian, where anything he thinks is funny money will happen, as long as he's confident, but Takaba doesn't know how this works. In this fight, we learn Kinjaku has another special grade curse, special grade rebellion spirit, the Pinnacle. But thanks to Takaba's comedy, it gets one-shot by a truck, showing how far Takaba's comedy can really go. We find out curse manipulation is basically useless against Takaba. If Kinjaku keeps trying to kill him, he'll lose. So he had to satisfy Takaba's love for comedy, or else he'd keep taking damage, wasting resources, and die. Next up is Yuta Kotsu's technique, Copy. This lets him copy the abilities of others and use them as curse tools. Yuta used this against Suguru with a megaphone to command curses to die, and they all exploded. This is impressive because the stronger a word is, the more it damages the user, and can even be rebounded onto them, yet Yuta has none of these issues, since he's using a curse tool, while the description says it steals the life of its target. When he uses this, it's difficult for him to aim properly, since the curse energy spreads everywhere. His mastery isn't the same as Inumaki, who had the technique since birth, yet later, Yuta does get better with curse speech. In Chapter 18, we learn that Yuta has potential to go beyond special grade. This can easily be because of his copy ability, since with over a decade of experience like Gojo, Yuta's curse technique arsenal would be absurd. When Kinjaku tells Gojo he's too strong in Shibuya, Gojo reminds him about Yuta, his protege. Kinjaku thinks Yuta's copy ability and boundless curse energy aren't enough to take him to Gojo's level, but we'll have to see how that turns out when Yuta's fully grown. Yuta uses copy again in Sendai Colony to use Uro's technique and Thin Icebreaker. This lets him redirect attacks and go past his opponent's guard, while Thin Icebreaker shatters the sky on top of his opponent's body. Yuta uses Uro's technique to redirect Ryu's Granite Blast and take him out with his own attack. How he copies moves hasn't been confirmed, but it looks like Rika has to eat someone's DNA. Yuta's the only person to retain someone's soul, which created Rika, the Queen of Curses. This is like a glitch in the system, since Yuta didn't want her to die, and Rika didn't want to leave Yuta, although no one has done this on purpose. In Volume 0, we see that Rika follows Yuta around in her weaker forms, and is visible to sorcerers. She has 4 forms in the series: a much smaller Rika, this worm-like Rika, an incomplete form we see more often, and her most powerful, her full manifestation, none of which can be seen by non-sorcerers. Early on, Rika is strong enough to damage Maki, Panda, and Inumaki. Rika is a special grade vengeful spirit, the highest rank there is, and the Tokyo squad are semi-grade 1 and below, meaning they're equal to or weaker than grade 1 curses. In Volume 0, we learn Rika is so powerful that she brought Yuta to special grade on her own. This puts Yuta in the same rank as Gojo. Even though he's so weak, he's afraid of curses that Maki one-shots. Early on, Yuta has no idea how to use Rika's power, and figures out how to summon her by wearing her ring. So the ring is like a pipeline connecting Yuta to Rika. Rika's so strong that Gojo tells Yuta she's almost impossible to exercise, and he'd risk his life to stop her. Gojo is the strongest sorcerer, and can wipe out everyone on the planet one by one, yet Rika is still significant to him. During his training, Yuta learns how to channel Rika's energy into his katana. This lets him use Rika's power to cut down his foes, but it does take training to do this at a high level. For example, Yuta failed to exercise a semi-grade 1 curse, and broke his katana later from channeling too much energy. In the fight against Suguru, Rika scoops up the Tokyo squad inside a black pouch, and moves them to a safe area. This is something no one else has ever shown, and it's an effective way of saving allies. Against Suguru, Rika is called a spirit of endless curse energy. This doesn't mean it's infinite, but it does mean she has a lot, so much that people don't know when it's gonna end. When Yuta fights Suguru, he goes from keeping up with a semi-grade 1 curse to keeping up with a special grade sorcerer. This is thanks to learning how to control Rika's power, that boosts him enough to fight the highest rank in the series. At the end of Volume 0, Yuta unravels Rika's curse, and Rika goes to the afterlife, leaving him with a shell of the Shikigami. This takes Yuta down to grade 4, and he trains overseas with Miguel to get special grade back. We later learn that Rika dominated the Kyoto squad in the exchange event. Yuta didn't summon her. Rika came out by herself, and took down grade 1 sorcerers and below, the strongest being Todo, who's equal to a special grade curse himself. In her incomplete form, Rika's able to restrain Yuji, and he can't move. Yuji at this point is stronger than Todo, a grade 1 sorcerer who killed a special grade curse and 5 grade 1 curses in a day. When Yuta is drained of curse energy from healing, he summons Rika to refill the tank. This is because he stores curse energy in Rika and pulls it out later. While he's connected to Rika through his ring, he can use copy techniques, have Rika fight with him, and take curse energy from Rika. The downside is this lasts for 5 minutes. This gives him access to curse speech, Drew's technique, and other moves, on top of Rika, who's strong enough to fight special grade sorcerers. When Kuroruchi separates Rika from Yuta, she gets a rage boost. How much stronger this makes her isn't said, but she is special grade, so any boost she gets will still have her top tier. Yuta and Rika work together to fire a love beam. This can only happen when Rika's fully manifested. When they're together, it competes with Ryu Ishigori's Granite Blast, but it's weaker when Rika fires by herself. When Ryu punches Rika in her incomplete form, it's too much and she despawns. But even if she was fully manifested, this would have been too much for her. So while she can tank Ryu's Granite Blast, there is a limit to what Rika can do. Yuta is one of the few whose domain expansion we haven't seen. His domain gets used in Sendai Colony, but because of a 3-way clash and invasion from Kurorushi, the domain breaks. Next up is Yuki Tsukumo, with her technique, Mass, Star Rage, or Bambaye. This lets her add virtual mass to her body and Garuda, her Shikigami turned cursed tool, which even the higher-ups don't know about. So Yuki's one of the best kept secrets in Jujutsu High. With her mass technique, Yuki turns Garuda into a ball and kicks it at special grade cursed Ganesha. This one-shots the curse with a headshot, the same way her student Todo spoke about early on, since that's the best way to kill curses. Yuki loads enough mass into her fist to punch through Kinjaku's arm and leaves it barely hanging on. Not only is this impressive because Kinjaku's a special grade, but she also broke logic by punching him through Tengen's barrier. When Yuki's at her limit, she attacks Kinjaku with Garuda, who can bind him on its own. Even with Yuki coughing up blood from domain expansion, Garuda is still strong enough to bind a sorcerer with the highest rank in the series. It can also use mass to weigh him down. Kinjaku also fires many Uzumakis at Yuki, and one of them goes through her gut. Even though virtual mass makes Yuki stronger, it doesn't make her more durable. Star Rage's mass doesn't affect Yuki's body, but only up to a certain density. When she keeps adding mass to her body, she can turn herself into a black hole. This black hole can destroy the whole planet, unless Yuki and Tengen suppressed its strength. It can also suck in light. Yuki does have a domain expansion, but it doesn't get shown since she used Tengen's plan. Whatever it is, it's probably strong, since she's special grade and her technique's already strong as is. Next up is brain hopping, Kinjaku's technique that can take over bodies by swapping his brain in. This gives Kinjaku the technique his new body has, their memories, and lets him live for 1,000 years by changing bodies over and over again. When Kinjaku meets Gojo in Suguru's body, Gojo can't recognize that he's not the real Suguru. Even though the Six Eyes can see through curse techniques, it can't see through Kinjaku's to tell Gojo the body's controlled by someone else. Kinjaku took control of Suguru after he died in Volume 0, but he couldn't take him over if Gojo cremated him on the spot, so the body has to be intact. Kinjaku couldn't take over Gojo because he can't kill him. He could take over Toji, but Toji's heavenly restriction may clash with Kinjaku's abilities. This means Toji may have taken over Kinjaku the same way he took over Ogami's grandson in Shibuya, since his heavenly restriction can overwrite his whole soul. When Choso tries to kill Kinjaku with a point-blank piercing blood, the top of his head spins and deflects it. This is called Fallen Samurai, and is possible from a binding vow by Kinjaku, where his scars never fully heal. Anti-gravity belongs to Kaori Itadori, Yuji's mother, but Kinjaku took the technique for himself when he stole her body. This lets the user control gravity at will, but its anti-gravity hasn't been shown in many ways. Choso uses supernova on Kinjaku, but Kinjaku brings a technique crashing down with anti-gravity. This means he can stop techniques from hitting him to begin with, as long as he's fast enough to respond. Yuki also thinks Kinjaku has a fourth technique, but what this technique does, if he has it, is unknown. When the fight keeps going, he crashes Choso and Garuda into the ground with his gravity. It has a 2 to 3 meter radius from his body, and lasts 6 seconds, and he fills the interval with curse manipulation. When Yuki turns into a black hole, Kinjaku uses anti-gravity to survive. He did this through lapse, to avoid restrictions on output and activation time, by using his own body as a domain. Kinjaku uses his domain expansion, Wound Perfusion, against Yuki in chapter 206. The domain sends a strong attack crashing on his opponent to flatten them, and damages special grade sorcerers. Kinjaku has an open barrier, so Tengen can't remove its shell. This amazes the best barrier user ever, and is something only Sukuna can do other than Kinjaku, on top of being able to destroy closed domains in domain clashes. Next up is Sukuna. Sukuna and Kinjaku are the only people who know how to turn souls into cursed objects. Sukuna Sukuna used this to split his soul into 15 fingers and take over Megami, while Kinjaku did this for Sukuna and many others in the past. Yet out of the many fighters we see in the Culling games, Sukuna is the only one that learned by watching him. Sukuna knew early that Megami could be his vessel and hold his technique. However, in order to gain control, he had to make sure Megami's soul broke first, so he waited for Megami to see Yorozu took over Sumiki. Dismantle is a part of Sukuna's main technique. This is the slash he uses the most often against his enemies. In Chapter 2, Sukuna uses Dismantle against Satoru Gojo and doesn't hit him. This is because Gojo's infinity slows down anything that tries to damage him, so Sukuna didn't reach him. But Sukuna did take note of this for later. In his fight against Jogo, Sukuna is at 15 fingers, so 15 special grade curses of energy, and his Dismantle is so fast that Jogo can't respond. Jogo got compared to Nabito Zeni, who's second in speed only to Gojo, yet Jogo couldn't see it coming or do anything about it. When Sukuna fights Mahoraga, he uses Dismantle and brings the Shikigami to one knee. Mahoraga is the strongest 10 Shadow Shikigami, untamed the whole time the technique existed, and even stronger than Jogo, who couldn't hit Sukuna, yet one move drops him to the ground. Sukuna hits Gojo with a headshot Dismantle, but Gojo stays intact. He's already blasting reverse curse technique at full output, and he's stronger than Ryu, so Gojo doesn't get his head split open like Ryu does. Later, Kusakabe blocks a bunch of dismantles with simple domain. This weakens Sukuna's technique, the same way Kusakabe did to Kinjaku's Uzumaki, and it's one of the many ways that simple domain can be used. When he fights Gojo, Sukuna learns how to cut space and the world to kill him. This was almost impossible to do, so he watched Mahoraga, and it works by expanding Dismantle's target, not to attack Gojo, but the space that surrounds him. Sukuna can fire his World Cutter, power it up, or shoot a net of them at his opponent. However, he can't fire them whenever since he needs a Binding Vow or charging time. Cleave is Sukuna's stronger slash that he brings out to deal with people too strong for Dismantle. Cleave can be adjusted to the amount of curse energy and strength of his opponent to cut them down in one fell swoop. Basically, he can one-shot people. When Sukuna uses Cleave against Mahoraga, it deflects thanks to its adaptation, and Sukuna is shocked Mahoraga even saw the move at all. This implies that hardly anyone, if anyone at all, ever sees Sukuna's technique coming, since he's 1,000 years old and this is still surprising to him. He gets up close and personal to Mahoraga and cleaves it straight down the middle. Cleave, as said before, is adjusted to one-shot its opponent, and Mahoraga survives thanks to adapting and its regeneration, since now that it's adapted to Dismantle, it won't die to slashing techniques. Sukuna uses Cleave again on Yuji after he takes over Megami, on top of a bunch of dismantles, but it's way weaker since he's getting nerfed by Megami and doesn't know yet. He has an extension technique for Cleave too called Spiderweb. This is basically him firing Cleave in a bunch of directions at once, that he used to chop up the ground against Yuji and Maki. Once he gets past Megami's nerfs, he hits Ryu with Cleave. This is impressive for Ryu since Sukuna's at 15 fingers, but Sukuna does apologize for underestimating him and says he'll fight for real, so he wasn't going all out. So after he does this casual cleave, he splits Ryu's skull open with Dismantle. This proves even more how much he was holding back, since Cleave is stronger than Dismantle to begin with. Sukuna's technique has at least two characteristics, slashing and flames. The fan book describes them as exceptionally powerful. Once they're activated, they'll destroy an enemy in an instant, tearing them apart and burning them down to their bone marrow. Only a few people are able to fight this technique even for a moment, and most are reduced to nothing before they can resist. When Sukuna releases the flames, he says open. What this is hasn't been explained yet, but Sukuna is surprised that Jogo doesn't know about it, which implies others can do it too. These flames destroy Jogo in a firepower battle and overpower him and his technique at the same time. Nabito and Nanami, two grade 1 sorcerers who match special grade curses themselves, said Jogo was on another level, yet these flames kill him in one move. Sukuna uses his flames to one-shot Mahoraga and vaporize everything around him. Mahoraga is stronger than Jogo, the strongest disaster curse, all who are special grades, with the highest rank and scales above many characters in the series like Yuji and others at the same time. Sukuna's domain expansion is Malevolent Shrine. After it comes out, anything in range with curse energy will get hit with Cleave over and over again, and anything without curse energy will be cut by Dismantle. This means Sukuna will use a move that can one-shot people with cursed energy again and again and again, and use Dismantle for buildings and people like Maki and Toji. Sukuna's domain expansion is called the Vine for using an open barrier. This is good because when he's put against another domain, even one that can match his strength, he can destroy it from the outside, and win the clash if the other person's barrier is closed. Using a binding vow, he boosts his range to 200 meters and drops it to 140 meters at will. This is the highest range for a domain expansion in the whole series, and when Gojo matches it briefly, it weakens his barrier and may weaken Unlimited Void in general. He can also expand his mouth to eat people at will. This gives him a boost of curse energy the same way it does for Daten. Sukuna and Gojo clash domains in chapter 225 with Unlimited Void versus Malevolent Shrine, and they're equal in the barrier. This is a big difference from Gojo walking straight through Jogo's domain, and Jogo not even trying against a 15-finger Sukuna because of how bad he lost to Gojo. In a domain clash, Gojo notes Sukuna's shrine as the center of the domain, not Sukuna. But Mei and Kusakabe seem to think destroying it will do nothing. In his second clash with Gojo, Sukuna turns off his sure hit inside his barrier. This is to counter Gojo making his domain stronger on the outside, so Sukuna used a binding vow to boost his strength on the outside and shatter Unlimited Void. He also goes back to back with Gojo to be unaffected by Unlimited Void. This is something he learned from watching Gojo versus Jogo in Yuji's body, where the effect stops on whoever's touching Gojo. We learned from Gojo that even when he made the inside of his domain weaker, Sukuna chose to destroy it from the outside instead. This is all a part of Sukuna's plan to have Mahoraga adapt through Megami's soul, and Gojo having the upper hand for 3 minutes inside of his domain may have been a part of his plan as well. Next up is 10 shadows that Sukuna got when he took over Megami. The technique lets the user control shadows and summon 10 Shikigami made out of them, but they have to tame the Shikigami first. One of Sukuna's Shikigami is Divine Dog Totality, that even under Megami could damage special grade Curse Hanami and one-shot special grade Finger Bearers. In chapter 213, Sukuna summons Nue and uses lightning on Maki and Takaba. This Nue is fused with Orochi, and the lightning did no damage to Maki, who's equal to Toji. Sukuna also brings out Divine Dog Totality that's way bigger than Megami's, and Yorozu has to dodge instead of taking the attack. Yorozu is stronger than Jogo, since she can catch and damage Sukuna, so this Divine Dog is packing some serious power. One of his strongest Shikigami is Mahoraga, that can adapt by spinning the wheel on its back. This lets it see and deflect Sukuna's cleave, and Sukuna's shocked Mahoraga even saw it to begin with. Mahoraga attacks Sukuna with the Blade of Extermination, and Sukuna blocks it, but he does know something is different about this blade. This would have killed Sukuna if he was a curse, since it uses positive energy that will obliterate a curse in a single blow, and it can swap to curse energy for humans. The Shikigami adapts to any and all phenomena, like a late throw in rock, paper, scissors. This happens after it's hit with an attack and its wheel turns. This basically means Mahoraga will adapt to whatever's thrown at it, and won't die to the same kind of attack, so you'll have to kill it with something else. It'll also keep adapting and get even better at countering, but with more complex techniques this does take time. Sukuna brings out Mahoraga's wheel for a test drive, and we later find out he can take damage from Mahoraga and then summon it already adapted, which is a great way to counter domain expansions. He also has Round Deer that nulls curse techniques and heals him with reverse curse energy. This does look like it's limited to close range, but nulling techniques and healing is useful regardless. This is when he brings out another Shikigami, Piercing Bull, that gets stronger the further it runs. There have been memes about putting this on a treadmill and having it one-shot Mahoraga, but it is strong enough to hurt Yorozu through her armor, so it's really good. When he summons divine dogs that aren't totality, he doesn't give them a stable form. This keeps them from getting destroyed, and Sukuna pumps them with curse energy to make them strong. Sukuna also drops Max Elephant on top of Yorozu and knocks her out of her bug armor. If this is on the same level as Megami's from his domain expansion, this elephant weighs 6 tons. Sukuna can also use Max Elephant's water like Piercing Blood. Gojo compliments him on this, since this takes skill on his level, let alone using it in tandem with Mahoraga. He also has another Shikigami, Agito, that's a combo of Round Deer, Morn Tiger, Nue, and Orochi, and it can heal like Round Deer does. Divine Dog Totality got strong enough to one-shot special grade curses from 2 Shikigami, let alone 4 combined through death, so this thing is very powerful. After goading Mahoraga to show him what he can do, Mahoraga cuts through Gojo's infinity. This is Mahoraga cutting space with Sukuna's slashes, as Sukuna explains later. Sukuna's main weapon is Kamutoke, that Yorozu gifted him on her death. This is one of his main Heian era weapons and fires electricity at his opponent. Sukuna has used this on 2 opponents so far, Kashimo and Mei's Crows. Kashimo is unaffected since his passive surrounds him with electricity anyway, but Mei's Crows got the full effect. Sukuna can also use domain amplification to get past Gojo's infinity, like Jogo and Hanami. Unlike Jogo and Hanami, Sukuna isn't weaker than Gojo, so Gojo's not gonna blow up Sukuna to counter him. Gojo closes in on Sukuna and uses red, but Sukuna weakens it with domain amplification. We see this same thing later from Higuruma, who weakens Sukuna's technique the same way. Sukuna also turns on amplification inside Malevolent Shrine. This shocks Gojo, since Jogo and Hanami can't use their innate techniques while amplification's on, yet Sukuna uses it inside of his domain. When Sukuna uses Mahoraga's wheel and domain amplification at the same time, the wheel turns black. This means Sukuna can't adapt during that time. We also learn in his fight against Gojo that Sukuna can use someone else's soul to adapt for Mahoraga, so he can basically have Megami take damage for him and summon Mahoraga fully adapted without his opponent ever knowing what happened. Among all the special grades, Gojo, Kinjaku, and Yuki are all confirmed to have simple domain. It's an anti-domain technique that neutralizes guaranteed hits and can be used in other ways. When Yuki uses simple domain against Kinjaku, it crumbles, since this doesn't last long against strong domain expansions. However, Kinjaku's simple domain is on another level, and Tengen thinks he's built different, since he's one of the best with barriers. Gojo brings out simple domain for the first time against Sukuna. This does give him time to heal, but it doesn't hold out for long, since even Gojo's simple domain isn't on a high level. It's also impressive because Gojo's using reverse curse technique and curse energy at the same time. Gojo learned this since he's a natural genius who can learn things on the first try. This is backed in the fan book, where Gojo's said to be able to do anything he puts his mind to. Gojo uses a second simple domain, but this is to buy time to refresh his burnt out curse technique. Gojo learned how to heal himself in a way that gets past technique burnout, shocking Yuta, who's been healing since early in his career. Gojo is the only special grade shown to have Falling Blossom emotion, but others may have it too. This is an anti-domain technique that counters sure hits with curse energy. Gojo uses this against Sukuna when Sukuna breaks his domain a second time. This doesn't get stripped away like simple domain, but the user still takes damage, and it won't work on complex techniques like Unlimited Void. Reverse curse technique is used by Gojo, Yuki, Yuta, Kinjaku, and Sukuna. This lets them heal physical injuries, but each of them has a different level of mastery over it. Suguru may have it from his fight with Uzumaki, but it is not confirmed. It's also missing from his profile in the fanbook. Multiplying curse energy, or negative energy, together makes positive energy. This enables reverse curse technique and physical recovery, but it needs an extremely delicate ability to manipulate curse energy, so there's only a few people who can use positive energy. Gojo first learned reverse curse technique when Toji stabbed him in the head with a knife. He gave up on fighting back and tapped into the core of curse energy, but he couldn't have done this had Toji stabbed his brain with the inverted spear of heaven or cut his head off. When Gojo gets his domain expansion broken by Sukuna, his neck gets cut open. Thanks to reverse curse technique, he doesn't only heal, but he also survives through so many slashes that his body is covered in blood. Gojo then fights Sukuna while healing himself through Malevolent Shrine. This is impressive because Yuji, who keeps up with Mach 3 Maki, cannot catch Sukuna at all, even when he's not attacked by anything or healing. When Gojo goes for a 5th Unlimited Void, he bleeds out of his nose and mouth, since he's been giving himself brain damage and healing it to refresh his technique. This overloaded his brain and took away his domain expansion. Even though Sukuna did it less times, he suffered the same fate because of Unlimited Void. Yuta is the first person we see use reverse curse technique in Volume 0 to heal the Tokyo Squad. He's the only person aside from Shoko and Sukuna that can heal others, since even Gojo doesn't know how to do this after having it for over 10 years. In Chapter 141, Yuta uses reverse curse technique when he stabs Yuji in the heart to kill him and revive him. This is Yuta bringing Yuji back from the dead like Sukuna, but Sukuna waited a whole day, and Yuta did it instantly. When Nalia's on the ground reeling from Choso's poison, Yuta heals him casually. This is the same poison Uraume couldn't heal, even though she's 1,000 years old, and it's one of the hardest things for reverse curse technique to fix. When Yuta gets hit by the festering life blade, he blasts curse energy out of his mouth to kill Kurorushi. This positive energy is the same kind Mahoraga uses to one-shot curses, and the mouth is the fastest way to release the energy. Ishigori is shocked that Yuta can use reverse curse technique, but even more that he can use it for damage. Ishigori is one of the strongest from 400 years ago, and even to this day, Yuta is the only sorcerer who's shown this feat. After he uses reverse curse technique, he has more curse energy than Gojo, but reverse curse technique costs so much that he ran out when fighting Uro, Ryu, and Kurorushi. Later, when Gojo heals his burnt out technique against Sukuna, this shocks Yuta. Not only has he never done this, he has no idea how it works, even though he was advanced enough to heal others in one of his first major fights. Against Yuki, Kinjaku heals his broken arm after it was split by Yuki's mass. We later learn that on top of his domain expansion, this took a toll on his curse energy pool. When Yuki heals against Kinjaku, she goes to attack with Garuda, but reverse curse technique slowed Star Rage down. This looks to be Yuki putting less focus into Garuda because of how much energy reverse curse technique takes, so Garuda loosened up and Kinjaku got out of the binding. Against a finger bear, Sukuna uses reverse curse technique to regenerate Yuji's arm by accident. We learn from Ryu Ishigori that regenerating limbs is a major feat, even to someone who can fight special grades like Yuta Kotsu. Against Megami, Sukuna rips his heart out and uses reverse curse technique to stay alive and fight at the same time. This is the same thing he compliments Gojo for when they fight in Shinjuku, when Gojo heals himself in Sukuna's domain and fights him. Once Yuji meets Mahito, his friend Junpei gets hit with Idol Transfiguration, while Yuji begs Sukuna to heal him and Sukuna refuses. We learn later that Sukuna's reverse curse technique can't heal the soul, so it's not that he refused to heal Junpei, he couldn't heal Junpei to begin with. Sukuna rushes over to Megami after fighting Jogo and heals him before fighting Mahoraga. He's one of the only people beside Yuta and Shoko that can heal others, and has the most advanced reverse curse technique in the series. This next one isn't reverse curse technique, but it's a big deal. When Sukuna goes into his Heian form, this is a full heal for Sukuna, so all his injuries are gone, his brain damage is gone, and he was never in danger against Gojo to begin with. That was every special grade sorcerer's technique, but domain expansions are the strongest moves in the whole show, so if you want to hear about those, click this video.